Here we come inside to check out our figure. Nice laboratory here to examine our Eva. Powering on, getting her ready. All stations prepare. Check station 1. Initialize. Station 2. Initialize. All stations are go. Ready for Eva to come online. Here's our figure in all her glory. Really, really, really awesome. You have that nice horn on the top of the head with kind of a matte gray with a little green accent. You also have this purple throughout the body with the green eyes. You can see the eyes, look at the hexagon shapes on the top of the skull. If you look and peep in underneath that shell there, you'll even see the brain of the Eva. Really amazing detail. Now check out, you can see, you even see parts of the spine coming up along the neck region. Really neat. We'll look at that more in just a moment.
Now let's go look at Eva's articulation.
And here she is. Let's look at some of her helmet and head articulation here. She can look up, and then with the help of her neck going up a little bit further. Excellent range of motion, I believe, there for that. Let's turn her around here so you can see. She can look up quite a bit. Love those green eyes. All right, and to look down and tilt her head that far, and then the neck can go forwards quite a bit, and that's without using the back or spine bending feature. That's a pretty good range of motion there as far as being able to get a downward gaze for our Eva. Love the color scheme on this particular figure. Just absolutely amazing. The silver accents, really nice. As far as articulation, let's bring her back to a neutral position and take a look at another very amazing feature. So one of the things that I thought was really astounding about this action figure, that was really a selling point for me, is the ability of Eva to be able to open her mouth. Check that out. Really neat. The mouth will open and close. Really amazing. Really neat feature there. You can see the red on the inside of the mouth. Green coming off the chin, gray, gunmetal almost accent on the lower part of the chin before you get to that green accent. Now I want you to notice something under here, if you will. It's almost a burgundy red, but there's an actual metal bar underneath the chin. You can see it's almost a copper burgundy color, but it's metal up underneath the chin. Now that is where Eva has a joint effect. You see that actually recesses and goes back down inside of her neck. And the interesting thing about that we will look at here just for a moment. But we're going to first remove this horn area, so just very carefully pull that forward and remove that, because that's a very fragile piece. It's made of good plastic, but you don't want to break that horn and have to be in a position of having to glue it back on. So we're going to show you another aspect of this Eva's head. You're able to pop this head off. I'm going to set Eva back here just for a moment and show you what I'm talking about. This head, and again you can see the mouth movements, has this little orange burgundy piece here. That part actually goes down inside of that area right there when the head's going up and down, kind of adding some extra control there. And so what you're able to do, as we focus back on the head here, is you're able, underneath that chin, and you want to hold that jaw, is you're able to pop that out. See that ball joint? You're able to remove that completely. Now what you're able to do when you do that, let's come back over here to our Eva unit, and when you pop this head, you see the ball joint there, and you see the hole. When you pop that back on, you're going to be able to get a little bit more range of motion. Let me demonstrate. You're going to be able to look down a lot further when you remove that hinge. Now it does bring control and it adds some detail to the look of the Eva, but if you're wanting to get some pictures with that head going all the way down as far as possible, then, and let's go ahead and add back on the normal headpiece horn here, so you get the full effect. You're able to look all the way down and get a little bit more range of motion. Also, that's not all. Because of the fact that that piece goes down inside of the neck, you're limited on how much you can turn side to side, as you could imagine. So with that being gone, now you're able now to turn your Eva's head almost all the way to the right and all the way to the left. So when you remove this little piece here, that becomes a benefit for getting some more range of motion with the neck and the head. And that also allow you to tilt your head, get a little bit of a bobble head, and I popped it off there, but you see the point that I was making. You're going to be able to get some motions like that. See the little bit of a tilt there, a little bit of a tilt this way, and you're going to be able to open that mouth all the way. You see how much more the mouth opened there? You see the mouth was able to open a little bit further also. So that's an action feature that's interesting to note. So what you do, just going over it very quickly here, you can remove the top piece. You pop off the head. Set the Eva back here just for a moment. You see the little ball there, the little socket. You see the area there where it goes, where that pops into place. So you just take that and you pop it. It clicked right into place there. And then when you get your Eva unit back over here, it just simply slides into that neck area, and then you're able to pop the head back into place very easily. Everything's very tight and very well made, so you don't have to worry too much, but of course you want to be careful so that you're not scratching any of the paint and your motions are fluid. So just an excellent design, genius in design quality. Now I'll notice just one thing that I want to mention to you in relation to your Eva unit here when it comes to the head motion. We were looking at how to tilt the head back. Now when the neck is fully upright, that helmet hits, if you see, it hits that purple back part right here. Let me get this pointer so you can see my finger not being in the way. This purple back part right here, it's going to hit that. And so when you bend your Eva unit down with the neck leaning forward, and by the way, just to show you if you didn't see it before very well, there is an amazing amount of detail that is given to this Eva right here, even the spine going down the back of the neck down into the Eva unit. Just amazing, really neat detail there. If you can see that, that's really neat against that orange and that gold accent going down into the Eva unit itself. So when that helmet hits this back part back here, what you can do is tilt that neck forward, and then that will have a clearance, if you can see that. And see, now you can look all the way up. You can look straight up even with that piece in place. Matter of fact, it actually accents that piece, and that piece is kind of highlighted there and actually looks neat, looks like an addition, looks actually like a you can see there very well, just really looks phenomenal. It adds to the look of the character. If that was missing, if that was not there, the aesthetics would not be near as well, near as good there, would be missing. And so that is just really, really neat. I'm impressed with that. I mean, so you've got options all the way around. Look how many options you have just with the head and the neck alone. It's just very, very good engineering with this action figure. Very good design. And of course that could also, when you don't have that in play, could also be a part of your strategy when you're moving the head and tilting it side to side, making sure that piece gets that clearance right there, so that you're not scraping and that you're not being hindered by the movement of your Eva unit. But typically, as far as your neutral position, it's almost going to rest right there in the center, as you can see, tilting the head forward. There's your, I would say, I call that the neutral position for your Eva. Alright, so the next thing that I want us to look at concerning our Eva unit here, Eva 01 test unit, metal build, Evangelion, super organic robot warrior. I mean, she is like the ultimate cyborg. Well, let's look at the shoulders. Let's look at this first of all, that right here. This will tilt over this way, is on a ball joint, as well as this piece is also, you'll notice, this piece also is on a ball joint, so it is posable and tilts. So you have this piece that is independently movable here and can be adjusted in quite a few angles, even side to side like that, which is just, really amazing. These almost look like, to me, some kind of ventilation, or using our imagination, almost some kind of cannon-like type design, like something could come out of here. But this looks like metal up in there. I'm not sure if it is or not, to be honest with you, but it may be plastic. Some of this is surprisingly strong plastic that looks kind of like metal, but and there are definitely metal parts in this metal build figure, but that right there may not be one of them, as far as thin as that is. But it looks so shiny and metallic down in there that it looks almost like some kind of blade that is recessed in there, that becomes a part of your infrared type or sonic boom or some kind of device. You just can use your imagination there. You can see all the qualities that come into play on just that piece alone, and there's one on both sides. And of course, look at the accents. I mean, you have that gunmetal accent here. You have this orangish copper right here accent on both sides. You have the Evangelion logo and text with the line just masterfully positioned right there. And then along with the lines and the depth, look at the depth right here. And then the green. I mean, just, you know, this, there's no details of that on the cartoon, because the cartoon was not computer animated. It was pencil drawn. I mean, it was animated, but it was not computer animated like three-dimensional like we have today. And these details were not on that cartoon, but they have added so much detail and realism to this that you could think that this was literally some kind of, you know, real life type outfit or suit or armor or robot. It's just really neat. And look at the rivets, even the coloring of these rivets that are in the shoulder area. We were talking about the detail. Look at the detail right here on this almost shoulder pad part armor, with the accent gunmetal here, with the almost silvery sparkles and glitter inside of that, and then the purple accents. It's just really neat. And then your Eva 1 logo. This is the first Eva 1. There was a prototype Eva 0, and then this was the Eva 1, which was one of the main fighters, and just really neat there. But let's go ahead and get to the articulation, getting off some of those details that you can kind of get lost in. Okay, so we've covered this articulation here, and we've covered this articulation here, and that only moves up and down. It does not move side to side. This moves all around, and you can get all kinds of change there, and that's basically so that you can move the shoulder and it not be in the way. Okay, so this is where we want to really bring some attention to this. So we're going to bring some more light in here, and I want to zoom in here because I want you to see the muscles at work. Let's first of all check out the shoulder. Notice the clearance. Now, it's not a huge gap, but there's clearance. Now, the reason for that is when you lift up the shoulder, look, that recesses up inside of the figure. It literally recesses up inside the figure. And then, of course, this is able to move so that it can stay centered, even if that bends all the way up inside there. And so you have, if you'll notice here, you have almost, and this is all metal under here. This is all metal. There's a metal skeleton underneath all of this, and that's all metal. This is plastic, this is plastic, this is plastic, but then all of this under here, this underneath part. Now, even this silver here is plastic, actually. I was really fooled by that myself, thinking that may be metal, but that is plastic, but it looks metal. I mean, even when you touch it, it almost feels metal, but it is plastic here. But all of this underneath is metal. That's metal. And so you can see it's almost like muscles working in tandem with that metal. It's just amazing the way this design is. And when you go up, that recesses up inside there. Look at that again. All of that recesses back inside, and you're able to bend that forward. It's almost like a reverse butterfly joint. You know, your butterfly joint usually will go this way, you know, tilt this way, but instead you almost have a reverse butterfly joint. And the reason I say that is because, look, when you move this, and I want to move this up here, I want to move that up, I want you to notice that independent of that, let's say, let's just work on that for a moment. We're going to try not to move that, okay? Look at this joint right here. That moves also. That joint moves also. Even if this one does not, this one does. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. I was able to do it that time. Okay, you see that? Even when you do not move, this joint here, like almost a vertical butterfly joint, this shoulder joint does move. This metal shoulder joint will move all the way up, and I don't want to move it all the way up because this will pop off, and there's already some tension there on this, and it does move up a little further. There it goes. And then you can, there we go, you see it moves all the way out. That is an independent joint from your vertical, almost, I'm calling it a butterfly, almost lats, if you will, muscles here, and that comes straight out, and you see the Eva unit is able to go completely straight out there. And of course it would go 360 as well. I'm not sure if you can with that equipment on there or not, but you certainly could. You could, yeah, there it goes right there. You see it does. It goes 360 without even messing up those pieces there if you move them ever so slightly. They will pop off, but you can pop them right back on, kind of like you did the joint under here, the little ball joint, because there is a metal little joint underneath there that holds those pieces on independently. This one and this one. Just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And to me, the engineering that went into this action figure is just, again, mind-blowing in my opinion. Just really amazing. All right, let's go ahead and look at since we're on this side, I want us to see there's this, we got to cover that. There is a bicep swivel. You almost can't see it. It always looks like this is attached or joined together, but there is a bicep swivel there. So you can turn that from left to right all the way around if you want to without any restriction or restraint. I mean, the articulation and the low profile of this articulation is, to me, an amazing feat. But you have that bicep swivel. So while we have that, let's look at something else that is just very amazing. Okay, this is like drum roll moment almost. You see the hinge here, and you can see the tiny pin. Let's get the light just right. You can see the tiny pin here in this elbow that goes all the way around. You have this little flexible cover of the back elbow. Okay, that's almost part of the armor, if you will. And if we turn it around back here, you see that pin comes out, continues to flow out right here. All right. And don't you love the Project Eva and the design here of this? Again, flawless paint apps, nothing out of the ordinary or out, off center or off at all. Everything's perfect there. And then you have this little cover on the elbow. So this is your drum roll moment, is you have double jointed elbows. Now you can kind of see that here in your the bend of the arm here. Almost see those metal joints. Again, this is all metal coming down from your Eva into this section. And when you bend this, here it is, watch. When you bend this, it'll go all the way. Matter of fact, if you move some of this, it'll even go further. I mean, look at that. You're talking about able to do full crossover, which we'll look at later. You're able to do full crossing of the arms. I don't know about you, but here's a test of an ultimate elbow butterfly joint and function of articulation. Can your action figure cross their arms? Most of them, I would say 90% of your average action figure, probably more than that, cannot even come close. My Prince Goro can come very close. Some of the action figures from Storm Collectibles, but this one can, and we'll look at that later. But a full, I mean, you talking about, okay, some action figures only get 90 degree, even with a double jointed elbow. I mean, this almost comes fully vertical with the bicep area. That is just amazing to me. That creates a lot of possibilities in your posing and in your fun with an action figure. And of course, I am a articulation junkie. I've almost been tempted to name my channel Articulation Junkie. All right. Well, they say plastic crack a lot of times. Yeah. Okay. All right. But there you have a swivel on your wrist, and you have a full range of motion up and down. And on that ball peg, oops, I popped that one off. That allowed me to show you, but this ball peg, even though it can be bent, then it can be turned whichever direction you need it, so that the hand could actually move in more than just this way. It could even do the hammer, motion, or bend however you want once you bend and turn that ball joint whichever direction you need it to be turned. So you see it's kind of recessed in there. Now something else that's really neat to notice is this is even articulated. Turn it this way so you can see it very clear, getting it zoomed in here. To cover this joint, you can see more of it there. To cover that joint, so when the hands are in place, you actually have a hinged, articulated little sleeve cup that will cover up that articulation, so all you see is the hand coming out. I mean, can you just say wow and in awe there? That is just amazing. Come on now, that is just crazy. I mean, look at the detail in the forearms. There's even recessed. Again, there was none of this detail even in the cartoon, but they've added all of this just to make this a phenomenal, detailed, three-dimensional, come to life and beyond. I mean, just beyond. We talk about in Motu Classics, Masters of the Universe, the Classics line versus the Filmation line. I mean, the Classics line is definitely a lot more detailed in its, craftsmanship than the Filmation, because, of course, the cartoon, when it was drawn, was obviously a cartoon, and the drawing was limited because they didn't have the computer animation back then. But this just takes that to a whole nother level, in my opinion. And you have to be careful with some of these things. Like this fin here is plastic, and when I'm bending these tight joints, I'm almost afraid, am I going to break that off? But it's really not that flimsy. It's thick plastic. You just have that fear when you invest in an action figure of this quality and this build. It's just phenomenal. But that, just wanted to show you that. And of course, on this other side, you have the exact same thing. And I just want to bring that out very quickly here. You have this area here. You have this area here. You have this area here. See how that recesses in, goes in, and of course, if we move this, you're going to even get more of a range of motion. See how that almost goes all the way inside. That's just amazing. That reverse or vertical, I'm calling it a reverse or vertical butterfly, but it's actually more of a shoulder extension. And then of course you've got separately this that bends as well. Even if you don't bend this, you have this shoulder joint, as we said, that bends as well. So you see that again on this side, and your double jointed elbow. Check that out. I mean, she could let's make sure we don't pop that off there. But let's get it in a position where she could even bend and just kind of rest her, face on her fist there. That's kind of cool. Or hold a phone to her ear. So you don't get all that flexibility on a lot of figures, but you do on this Eva, and that's just so cool. And again, just to reiterate, all of this right here is metal. Your shoulder, your bicep line coming down here, low profile, even this coming down into the forearm. This is plastic. This middle section that looks bronze is almost a burgundy bronze. That is metal. I mentioned earlier that the hands almost feel metal because they're so heavy and so thick and so solid, but they are a just high-grade type of plastic with some metallic accents on the fist there. And we'll be switching out the hands here in just a few moments. But we've got to go over something else that's just phenomenal. And I'm gonna actually bend these out here so they won't be in the way. And I'm gonna lift up these arms just briefly here for a moment, because I want you to see something very spectacular about this Eva unit, and that's the torso. First of all, just get a good glimpse of this torso and the detail that's going on here. Just phenomenal. That was actually a little crooked, you could tell on the camera, but now it's straight. Wow, check that out. Do you see each individual section? It's green. You got almost like, okay, like let's just pretend like these are ribs here, rib cages almost. 1, 2, 3. These are not vertebrae. That's on the back, which that's impressive in and of itself. Leading all up into the torso area. All these green accents. Look at the green. Actually, it's more of almost a turquoise greenish color. It's darker than this green. This is more of a green here. But these little lines right here that run along these parts here, and believe it or not, these float. These move, and you don't want them to scratch your Eva's paint, and so they actually bend independently of each other. You see that they actually float. Talking about ribs, right? Let me get a smaller, I'm going to use the bayonet. Let's get a smaller blade so that we can go in here so you can see that lift, and then it can go back down. Let me push it down with my finger. That's the way these do, so that when you bend her, they float and function properly in line with however she's bending. So wow, tell me that is not just phenomenal and amazing when it comes to these side pieces. I mean, that's just crazy, right? All right, I want to zoom in just a little bit more here, and I want us to look at these side angles. You can see even there in the lighting, the colors that are popping right beside those areas that I'm calling kind of like the rib cage area here, the gold accents here. You can see that. You can see that almost a darker gunmetal with those little lines that wraps around the side. And you can see the spacing. That's for the mobility, the flexibility, and articulation we're going to see in just a moment. Those gold accents go all the way down to the hip area there. Then there's almost like this plate here, like maybe that covers supposedly maybe like a control panel or something. You can see there with two little eyelets or bolts that are painted in, which are really just, again, just accents to the genius of this figure. I mean, it just really kind of is amazing in general. Evangelion there and the logo. And remember, I said this is not metal, but it certainly looks and even feels at first feel. I mean, you can tell, but you can't tell. But that's plastic. But then all of this is metal under here. But then going around, you can see same thing on this side. There's that detail. Look at how even when you have it lifted up like that. I mean, those arms are lifted pretty high. They're straight out. You can see that even with showing off basically the guts, if you will, it still looks, can I use the word sexy? It still looks seamless. It still looks good. It's just cool. I mean, look, the way they colored the metal, different colors. You see how in the armpit, there you go, her pits, that you have different colors there that, you know, we've been saying, and I've heard other reviewers say as well, that kind of represents almost muscle, like the muscle, and then the movement, that stuff moves. I mean, watch this. When you do that, it actually moves. I mean, it's part of like the interior and it moves. All right, let's go on over to the back and focus on some other things here. This is cool too. You see back here you have like that part that touched the back of her skull, this part right here that kind of comes down, and then that's accented with green. You've got the lines, and then you have those little small lines, almost like they're maybe LED lights, but they're not, of course. But you see them again there, kind of like you did over here with that almost turquoise color, but it's just a darker green, I believe. But there is certainly some more of those that come in. This almost looks like the afterburners, like when, turbo boost, or like a helicopter would have, or something, or a jet that would kind of give some propulsion coming out. There is what comes to my mind. And then now let's look at the genius of this vertebrae that's back here. I mean, isn't that just amazing? That is just simply unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, look at the detail here. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more. Look at the detail here in this area on the back of the pelvis area. Like the bolts. Now there, of course, right here is where you would plug in the power port. That will be in the base that we'll take a look at in a minute. That's where that plugs into, and it fits perfectly. When you plug it in, it's shaped and fits perfectly. Everything was just thought out, just in perfection with this figure. I call it the architectural qualities of it. I mean, the engineering is a better way of saying it. All right, so enough clamoring over it. Let's zoom back out and take a look at the actual function, okay? So let's go ahead and check this out. I'm going to try to grab it at the proper places. All right, so let's look at it here. I'm going to zoom in, and I want us to look at the top part first. The top part bends. Do you see there? You see that top part that bent? Let me just change the angle of these arms just for a moment here. And then this mid section, the mid part of the torso, also bends. Wow. So you got the top part and then the midsection, and that's without using the legs at all. So you see just a very autonomous humanoid type bending that functions flawlessly. Everything's still covered. There's no unusual gapping. Everything just kind of floats in place, these parts on the side, and just allows for this Eva unit to get very human functionality. We can call it articulation, but just a skeletal system that works very similar to the way the body works. So it's just, to me, it's just very neat and unique. The detail and the exoskeleton kind of feel to it that I've never had on a action figure before. I mean, I'm just being honest. So that, to each their own, but I just, I find that really fascinating. Look at this. Check this out. Do you see the spine moving? Do you see that? That tilt? So you're going to get some dynamic side-to-side ability there, as you can tell. Being able to move in a just very fluid and very uniform way. And we're going to straighten her back out. We're going to do the top part first. And then do the midsection. So they were back kind of in the neutral position there. But you do get some turn. You don't want to scratch anything, but both of those you will get a little bit of twist. Not a whole lot, because you see you don't want to scratch that. So it's not like you get a waist swivel, a waist turn, but because of the other joints that do move, you really, I don't think you're going to need necessarily that that waist turn. All right, getting back at it with our articulation, we're going to be looking at the legs of this Eva, and you might think, well, the best is over. We've looked at the torso and the top, and so the rest is going to be boring. Don't think that. It continues to get good. We're going to look at some more Evangelion goodness here, and I want you to see something that is just really amazing. I want to get close enough so you can see this. Let me go ahead and do the actual motion first here of the legs to about their limit, which is about right there. Not a full split, but a pretty good range of motion. But let me show you exactly what's going on here, which is going to be pretty amazing. I believe you're going to be very interested to see this. So let me zoom in here, and I want you to see this area right in here for the sake of studying this figure's articulation. Watch the movement of these copper metal muscles, we're calling them. You see it? Do you see it moving? Independently, almost parallel. This thigh muscle and this inner thigh. Really amazing. Take a look on this side. You might be able to see it a little bit sharper with the lighting on that side. Let's see. Let's get a little bit more light on the subject here. I mean, that's what I call a pretty fascinating motion there and movement. So, as you see, the legs are equally impressive for this figure. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at how far it can come up. Not that far. See how far it can go back. It's about as far as it can go back, apparently. Let's check out the front. I mean, the right side. See how far it can go up. Pretty impressive. And then let's see how far she can go back with that leg. All right, so let me show you what I found out here. We're going to zoom in so that you can see it really well, I hope. If you can see this. You see that? On that ball joint, that actually rotates. And then that allows you to carry those legs. Do it on this side as well so you can see it. Rotates that way on that ball joint. And there's almost, if you'll notice here, I'll zoom in a little bit. There's some more of those muscles. It's almost a yellow color separating. You have this silver, this copper. Around on the other side, you had that copper running through with the silver, and then on the back side here, some yellow right there in that area. And it slides. It's hard for you to see that, but it's amazing. Apparently it's greased because, and let me see if I can rotate it on the front for you to see it a little better. Let's watch this now. There we go. You see that? On that ball, it rotates. And of course, we haven't really taken notice of this yet, but you can see that there's the continued accents with, there's a little bit of almost almost looks like a dark blue. And then you have another little triangle there that's part of that gunmetal, but it's recessed back in there a little bit. But look at the color that's coming through in just that leg area that separates these muscles that seem to work almost independently so that she can get that range of motion that we're seeing. And so if you kind of position it back in place, you can actually see that those legs will go to a full seated position very easily. And that does shift when you go back. You can feel it notch in place. It's like there's a notch. It just kind of notches in place. I'm trying to be careful with that, but yep, that comes back into place right there. And you can feel it. Continuing right along with the legs, let's go to the knees. And we're going to just show here as we bend it that we have a double jointed knee that will get full range of motion all the way almost to the point where she can touch her gluteus maximus. So you can see that, and of course this knee joint looks excellent. I mean, for a cyborg. This part right here will move in a little bit. It's on a hinge, so it will move a little bit. Not sure exactly why they didn't put a recess here so that could go in a little further, but you know, I guess that's part of the armor, which that's non-removable, but it's the color of the body armor that we'll be looking at when we install that in a few minutes. So let me move this back so you can kind of see. Every angle there for that bended knee. Again, you can see almost like a musculature in the calf. I mean, that's what I'm calling it anyway, almost like a muscularity in the calves here, the different colors like muscle fibers, thigh muscle there on the top, calf muscle in the inner part there as well. And of course you can move that out now and you can really see that. You can really see that there nicely. Do that again, where you can see those muscles moving. Okay, bending all the way. Got something else very impressive to show you that you wouldn't know unless you come back here and observe it. Alright, for you to see this, I've had to turn off some of the lighting so that the reflections will actually help us out a little bit. So it may be a little darker, but I think you'll be able to see it better. I want you to notice the back of the knee section here, these joints, this metal, and how it does right here, and that piece right in here. So watch when I bend the knee, just the bottom part of the knee. You see it move? Making room for the full action take place. First thing that happens, and it's hard to tell completely on the camera, but that little piece right there moves ever so slightly, that little copper metal piece. And then once that moves out of the way, then that plastic piece rotates back in and recesses in so that it can get a complete range of motion. Isn't that just amazing? I don't know exactly what the engineering calls for that is, but I find that pretty amazing. And of course this side, you just bend the bottom part of the knee, does the exact same thing. Bend that bottom part of the knee, and then you go into the full knee bend on that side as well. So excellent range of motion. And something that you've probably already noticed, because we're going to go ahead and start looking at the feet anyway, is the very cool bottoms of these feet. Check that out. Really neat techno look. They're not Nikes, but they're definitely look like tennis shoes. With the orange accents, the definition, the lines, the colors, and the colors work. I mean, that's what's so cool about it. The colors actually work with this. Now while we're back here, let's go ahead and take a look at the articulation of the foot. This goes completely forward. And if you'll notice, there's a little independently shaped piece right here that moves with it. So you can center that, and there's a little metal piece. I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera here. But there's a little metal piece up underneath there that allows for that little piece to sit on a ball joint and float. So depending on how you move the shoe, it can move as well, even side to side. That side and that side. But the foot can go all the way, if you remove that, it can go just about all the way, that direction. You can shift it some as well. And of course, if that pops off, that little piece pops off here, I'll show you the inside of that. It just pops right back on, so it's no big deal. If you push that in a little bit, it shifts that way. There you go. See? Cool. Now, moving along to the front of the shoe here, and you can go ahead and see it from where we had it bent back so far. That places this piece here in the same condition, and that piece will also rotate to the left or to the right. But that's because if your foot goes that way, the tongue can go that way. I'm calling it the tongue, but it's some kind of guard, shield. If you go up, it moves. This is really cool. Check it out. It has a toe bend as well. We can get that out of the way and even go even further up. See, for both of them there. It's tight on that side. Once we kind of get everything back in place, that you do have an excellent foot pivot. Both directions. That's right. If you need to get that leg out there like that, to have that position come into play, you're going to be able to get that on both sides. And voila, she'll stand. And that's getting both of those feet. That's what we're about. We want to show you every part of a figure so that you can either own it vicariously. I've done that with figures. And maybe even eventually get one on your own.
Stay tuned for part 3 of Ava's review as we snap on her body armor and holsters and take a look at her elaborate charging base and stand.